From the Ticats Audio Network, this is Tiger Cats Game Day with Courtney Stephen and Mike Daly.
Welcome to Tiger Cats Game Day, presented by Tiffany Gate Fresh Gourmet on the Ticats Audio Network. The Ticats are heading to Regina tonight for this late season showdown with the Riders, who need a win very badly to keep this playoff dream alive. The Ticats, 3 games left in the season, and they've already clinched a spot. It's not often that you're this early, or I should say you have 3 games left in the season and you already know your destiny, Mike. So heading into this one, do you have a sense of relief? Are you still pedal to the floor trying to get some momentum? What is the vibe headed into the game tonight against Saskatchewan for the Ticats?
Yeah, I think as long as there's a home playoff game that's able to be played for, you got to try to get that, right? And Corey, you know just as well as I do, there is a different feeling between having a home game versus an away game, right? Especially a playoff game. We've talked about this before, where playing at Tim Hortons Field, especially in the playoffs, is quite the advantage. Just the crowd, getting your energy into it, right? They keep you up the entire game. But having to play on the road, that involves the travel, that involves sleeping in a hotel, that involves not having your locker, you know what I mean? Making sure that you have to bring everything, just not feeling not as comfortable as you would going to a place that you go to every single day for practice and where you have your meals and where you watch film. So there is a comfort level of getting that home playoff game, and that's why it's so important. So you don't have to take that extra day to travel, sit on a plane, a train, whatever it might be. And then you can just kind of stay at home and get into your groove that way. And so I think as long as there's that home game to play for, that's kind of what has to be the goal. And this game is one of those ones that's going to matter a lot when they're trying to catch Montreal.
So looking to lock in that last playoff spot, Saskatchewan battling to stay ahead of Calgary and Edmonton. Meanwhile, on the east side, it's that 2-dog race with Hamilton and Montreal battling to see who will have the home game in the first round of the East Division playoff. So tonight is going to be a game where there's nothing left held back. It's all going to be out there on the field. There are a few changes on the roster, and as always, I think we start there. Let's talk about the big one, the one that is under center, or more traditionally in the CFL, in that shotgun, receiving the ball about 5 yards behind David Beard will be none other than number 19, Bo Levi Mitchell, coming into this game 3 more starts before the playoffs. Is this his preseason?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question, because I think when you're out that long as Bo Levi was, right? Like there is that rust we continue to talk about, right? I know he's been back practicing and all that kind of stuff, but it's not the same for a quarterback. Listen, every defender in court, it would drive me nuts. I'm sure it would drive you nuts. I'm sure it drives a D lineman even more angry. But you can't even come close to a quarterback in practice. I'm talking like they'll slow film down, they'll pause it in front of everybody if you're too close to them, and they'll say, "What are you doing? You do it again, you're off the team," kind of thing, right? So although he's been practicing sitting back there, it's easy for those quarterbacks in practice because they know they're not going to get hit. That's the biggest change, that once you go from practice now into a game, you still have to make those reads. But once you get hit, it's a little bit different of a situation. So that's what Bo Levi has to get comfortable with again. I'm sure he feels just fine throwing the ball. He's probably throwing it a ton, especially with his injury. He could have been working on that, right? And just keeping that up. What he hasn't been working on is, like I said, getting hit and then having to make those reads, knowing that at some point you're going to have to stand in there and throw. Because with an injury like that, Court, all it takes is there's always this doubt in the back of your mind. Am I really ready? You know what I mean? Is my leg really going to hold up? How am I going to feel? I know I feel fine in practice, but how am I going to feel? You almost need to get hit once or twice to be like, oh yeah, okay, I'm fine. I can do this, right? And I feel like that's where Bo is right now. And this will be, shaking the rust off as well, but also as bad as it sounds, getting a few hits to make him feel a little more comfortable back there.
Well, Bo Levi Mitchell will tell you it's like riding a bike when you get back out there. But a few things have changed since the last time he was at the helm. Namely, the offensive coordinator has switched. And so I wonder how much of an impact that will have on the way that he approaches the game. We know Bo, and over his career, he's been the type to take shots, to throw the ball deep, to try and make the big play. And I think in this offense, he's going to be asked to do a lot of other things. Along with throw the deep ball, he's going to be looking for intermediate routes. He's going to be involving the running back. And so hopefully this is a game where, you know, the Ticats, they want to go out, they want to win. If they win the last three, if Montreal drops one of their games leading into that last one, the Ticats will clinch that home field playoff spot. But from my perspective, more important than getting the home playoff spot is having your top dog get live reps heading into the elimination round of the playoffs, because you don't want his first game to be in the playoffs. And I saw some, quite honestly, just some bad takes on the internet of people talking about momentum this and Taylor Powell that and Matt Shields. Hey, look, Matt Shields is a dog, and I have 100% confidence when he goes in the game. He's going to light it up. He's going to do his thing. He'll tuck it on that QB counter. He'll run for 15, dip a shoulder slide. He'll throw the ball in there. He dropped 2 bombs last week when he came in off the bench as that reliever. But when you've got Bo Levi Mitchell in there, I need him getting reps in this new offense so that when the chips are on the table, that the person who you've entrusted with the keys to this offense has the confidence to go out there and throw on time, on rhythm. I think that gives you the best shot to go the furthest into these playoffs. So we'll see what Bo's chemistry is like with his receivers, and we'll see what his grasp of this new to him playbook is, because everybody else seems to be taking it and running with it.
Yeah, and I'm completely with you on that, right? Like, yeah, the home playoff, exactly what I was talking about. That home playoff is absolutely important. But like you said, even more important than that is getting Bo Levi Mitchell not only ready to roll come playoffs, because that's really what matters, but also to get ready to roll with, like you said, Scott Mlanovich, right? Now with the Keandre Smith, with the Omar Bayless, who wasn't in there before, right? Terry Godwin, like all these guys, getting him rolling with those guys as well, right? So it is this complete effort that they're really going to have to utilize these last 3 games. Because listen, Court, we talked about this at the beginning. We talked about it in the middle of the season. You brought Bo Levi Mitchell in here for one reason, right? It's the Grey Cup year. It's to win you a Grey Cup. Use his veteran presence and to win you a Grey Cup. He's going to be in there. No matter if he's healthy and ready to go, he's going to be in there. This is where this team's going to ride or die on Bo Levi Mitchell. But knowing that Matt Schultz is right there, ready to step in if he has to.
So let's talk a little bit about this receiving core. Earlier in this week, they made some roster adjustments. They picked up Hergy Mayala, who will not be dressing today, but he's another great Canadian receiver, 4th-year player. He just was with Montreal most recently, spent a bulk of his time in Calgary, so he does have some existing chemistry with Bo Levi Mitchell, a guy who can go up and get the ball when tasked to do so. Then you have Chris Osikusi, who hasn't had a ton of reps this year, but he's stepping in somewhat for Tyler Ternowski, but it's more of a 3-way rotation because you got Keandre Smith stepping out of that Z position and going into the slot where Tyreek McAllister and him will split some time. Now, that's quite the lineup. I think when you got a guy like Keandre who started the year, if you remember back to preseason and week 1, he started the year in that slot. If you ask him, that's where he's most comfortable. That's where he feels most dangerous. And coming off of the back of the games that he's been having the last 2 weeks, I think that he could get some action there. So it will be interesting to see if Bo continues to target Keandre the same way he was targeted by the last 2 quarterbacks that were in there. But how important is it to have Canadian depth, especially at the late part of the season, not just in the receiving core, but just on a Canadian Football League team? How important is it to have those Maple Leafs on your roster?
Yeah, it's as important as can be. It's, you know, that's always been said where the teams that are deepest with the Canadian talent will go the furthest, right? And what you're seeing right now is actually the Ticats becoming a little bit thin with the Canadian talent with a few injuries, right? We talk about Tunde Adeleke, talk about Tyler Ternowski, right? But bringing in a guy like Hergy Mayala, who has played before, he'll step in there as well and help out. But to see Keandre Smith kind of take on this role of, like you said, that Z receiver, the furthest receiver out there, right? Kind of the last look on a lot of plays. And now moving in to what is, quite frankly, one of the most targeted positions on the offense, right?
That's that Andy Fantu spot.
That's in the Luke Tasker spot too, right? Like that's third place, man. And that's where you get all the looks, because when we talk about the quarterback play, they're looking for the big shot of like a Tim White, right? Is Terry Gonwood, has he beat his guy? Nope, they haven't. Or they're playing some sort of coverage that they rotated that way. Well, guess who's right in front of my face? DeAndre Smith standing there with his hands wide open just waiting for the ball, right? So he's going to get a ton of targets, and he's shown that he can do a lot with those targets and getting a little bit of yak yardage after the catch, makes some defenders miss. So I'm excited to see him move in there and to get him involved, and then Tyreek McAllister in there a little bit more as well. Those two guys make a lot of people miss.
So let's hop over to the other side of the ball for a second, and let's talk about the Ticats defense. I feel a lot like Coach O right now. He talks about, we study the opponent, but we focus on ourselves. I want to take my time to give somebody their flowers. I think number 3, Kenneth George Jr., moving into that boundary half spot, where it was a late adjustment on day 3. There was a roster shift with Javian Elliott. Somebody had to step up. We talked about him going into that spot where he had a lot different responsibility and he had an opportunity to step up. And we feel like he did that. And you know what? At this point in the year, I think he is one of the fastest improving players, considering how his season began to what he's been doing as of late. And I think that's exactly what you need heading into the playoffs. You need guys to be improving, showing gains, and making the plays when the lights are on and when the stakes are the highest. So, hat tip to Kenneth George Jr. He's a guy who he could have gone either way, right? The season started out rocky, but in the last game, he showed up big time. And I think it's important to highlight the guys who do well when they do step up and do things that are important for the team's projection of their season.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, we talked about how hard that transition was going to be. And honestly, I was nervous for him, right? I was nervous for him. And you said it perfectly. You were like, opportunity is all you ask for. And he took advantage of that. And so did Will Sunderland, who had to step in at that weak corner, right? Now, he dropped a couple interceptions, right? And we always talk about this. The DB that's going to lead the league in picks is just the one that catches the ones that are thrown to him. That's it. Just got to catch the ones that are thrown to you. But what that goes to show is that he's there. He's making plays, right? Those are going to turn for him. So to see him get involved a little bit was great. What I am looking forward to seeing, though, Court, and I think one of the biggest storylines here, because we've talked about this in the past, but Dylan Wynn coming back into this lineup at D lineman, he now helps, now that Ted Laurent is out, right? He helps with that rotation and is an absolutely dynamic player in there, just like Casey Sales is, just like Mohamed Diallo is. Him coming back is going to be huge for this Ticats D-line to be able to rotate, to be fresh. And don't forget, Casey Sales can also step out to the end as well. So if a Jagarrett Davis gets tired, if a Malik Carney gets tired, he can step out there and get Dylan Wynn in there. That's a lot of strength, and, I wouldn't want to have to be playing O-line against some of those guys, man. I mean, hey, I don't think I'd ever want to play O-line anyway, but especially against those guys, absolutely not.
There's 7 out of 8 of the linemen who are dressed for the Ticats on defense are bona fide starters, have been in the rotation as starters. And, I mean, Jamal Davis goes over his first game, makes a big play. Dylan Wynn, he's been known for making trouble in the backfield for years. Mason Bennett last season, he closed out strong. He had a good showing. And those 3 guys are starting off, coming off the bench. So when you got that kind of rotation, I think it's crucial when you're going up against a quarterback like Domagala, he's got a big arm. He's got a big frame, really. That's a huge target. I think getting hands up at the line of scrimmage, if you're not going to make it to the quarterback, stop, break, and elevate. I think that's going to be one of those strategies that the Ticats D linemen are going to have to put to use, just disrupting things, getting hands in his face, bumping him. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is if you're rushing full speed, high motor, and you're allowed to do that when you have a guy coming in every 3 plays who's fresh, who just came off of a break. And I think you have the confidence to rotate your guys when you have this kind of lineup on the D-line that the Ticats do.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. And what Jamal Davis was able to do coming off the bench, just like high energy, high motor, like just does not stop, right? And what was cool to see was the energy after a play was made, no matter who it was, right? You can tell he's excited to be on the Ticats, and that's usually what happens when a guy ends up having, kind of a bad ending with one of the teams. All he wants to do is come over and just have fun and play his best football, and I think that's exactly what we saw last game. But the nice thing is, and you see the teams that are always winning consistently are the ones that can rush the passer with 4 people, right? Not having to blitz, being able to keep people in coverage, right? Allow your linebackers to try to cover some receivers and take up some of those zones or double some receivers that are getting a lot of targets. But the best teams are able to rush the passer with 4, and the Ticats being able to rotate those guys in so that they're not having to do, wind sprints and conditioning all game long. They get to go off, get rested, get a little drink of water, get a break, and then come back in there and make the O-lineman's life living you-know-what. Well, perfect, right? And that's exactly what I think Mark Washington's going to try to do. Not saying he won't dial up some blitzes, because that's going to happen, right? But you can kind of rest it on the D-line play a little bit more.
And so let's talk about who that D-line is trying to affect. You've got Damagala over here on the other team, the Jake the Snake, the 9-foot wonder. He's about the biggest player in the stadium when he steps in there. What does he bring to the field? What are his strengths, and where is there an opportunity to take advantage of the way that he plays?
Well, I'll tell you, the one thing that he brings to the field is Sass seems like they're going to throw the ball about 35 plus times each game. They've shown that the past 4 or 5 games, where Dolegala, he has to sit back there and he has to keep throwing this ball constantly, right? Might be a little bit because they're behind, but also that's just the way it's going. They haven't had a very strong run game as of recently, right? Get Jamal Morrow back, but what Dolegala brings is he can make every throw on the field, right? He can get it out there all the way to the wide side, that Z receiver we talk about, right? He can make those big throws, but he also has shown that he's going to turn the ball over. I think in the past 2 games, he had two interceptions apiece in each game. So there's going to be some opportunities for this Ticat secondary to make a play. But when you get these big arm quarterbacks, right, he's not overly mobile, but he does want to stretch it downfield. Like we said, having a guy like Richard Leonard over there covering the field side where they're going to really air one out, he's going to help a ton, right? I think Richard Leonard's going to have a lot of opportunities this game to go up there and make a play, whether it's thrown to his receiver or to somebody else's receiver. He's going to have a lot of opportunities in this game because I just think Dolegala thinks that he can get that ball out there, and he has shown that he's going to throw some interceptions. So I'm curious to see how that's going to play out, but that's what Dolegala brings.
Mike, I just had a vision.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Dolegala drops back. He looks down the center of the field. He turns late to the fly and die route by the Z receiver. Richard Leonard flips his hips and goes and gets the late ball pick 6. Is this a vision of the future, or am I just being hopeful? I feel like this is a perfect game for a guy like Richard Leonard, because when quarterbacks have big arms, they feel like they can make throws where the timing isn't there. Because if you're going to check it down to that fly and die route, which for the person who has not been inside the film room, the fly and die is basically when the receiver is running as if they're going to do the fly, the streak, the go, the 9 route, the deep ball, but then they all of a sudden just die out. They shut it down, turn on the brakes, and they just stop at about 5 yards, right outside by the sideline. Just stay there, just kind of like an outlet. They're like a fire alarm. When there's an emergency, you throw the fly and die. So that's usually no man's land where nobody covers because it's too short and it's too far away, but it's like a check down. And if you throw that too late, a DB with a great break might get their hands on it. And I think you can be prone to throwing that ball late if you think your arm is stronger than it actually is. And maybe this is a game where Richard Leonard goes and gets himself one. He had a pick 6 last year. he's a guy who's done it before. He found his way to the end zone. Who knows? Maybe tonight is the night where he does it again. Who are some of the other receivers on this team that we should be circling and paying attention to for Saskatchewan?
Yeah, I think the one that is slowly becoming the one stepping out in front of everybody for Sask is Keon Schaefer-Baker. He's going to end up at that field side slot, but he's going to kind of show up everywhere. So Dexter Lawson, will see him a lot, but he's a big, tall receiver, right? So he's got a lot of range where it allows the quarterback to kind of miss a good targeted throw, and he can go up there and get it, right? He is super athletic. He's going to get a bunch of screens, but he can also get downfield. And last game he had a ton of targets and led this team actually in catches and yards. So I think they're going to try to get him involved again on this offense. Dexter Lawson, like I said, we'll see the most of him, right? Chris Edwards will see a little bit. But he is one guy on this offense where when you look at it, you say, okay, we have to know where Keon Schaefer-Baker is at all times because he is going to get the ball. That is where Dolegala is going to look first most of the time. And that's going to be kind of one of his outlets that you had talked about.
Well, look at these Guelph receivers just making the OUA proud on both sides of the ball. Keandre Smith and Keon Schaefer-Baker. I used to train with Keon when he was in college, and I tell you, this guy, he is a dog, so you don't want to let him off the leash. He will give you problems. So let's look at this game from a head-to-head matchup perspective. That's the way I love to look at it. That's the way that we looked at it as players. You break down the whole game, and then you break down your individual matchup. So who has the best matchup or the most exciting matchup for you in this game?
Yeah, I think when you look at it's going to be Larry Dean versus James Butler. All right, so Larry Dean's been around forever, right? And he's seen almost everything at this point. But when you look at what Sask is not doing very well, it's stopping the run. 122 yards a game they're giving up right now. That spells trouble for James Butler, who I believe is 58 yards away from 1,000 yards rushing. So they're going to be looking to get him the ball nice and early, and we've talked about this. It's like time and time again, right? James Butler starts this offense, and it rolls through him. And when a team is giving up that many yards rushing a game, you just say, hey, let's see if you fixed it, right? And if you maybe fixed it on the first time we've run the ball, well, we're going to run it 10 more times, right? And Larry Dean, Micah Johnson, you can add in there as well, right? Two guys that know the Ticats very well, but also have been around for a long time. Those two guys are really going to try to slow down James Butler, and I think that's going to be where the matchup is to honestly take a little bit of that pressure off of Bo Levi Mitchell and getting that rust out, right? Getting them a little bit more comfortable and kind of opening up this defense a little bit, trying to get them to focus on the run. So I think that's going to be where my first look is and kind of see how this game's going to play out.
Yeah, it's tough because when they lost Darnell Sankey, I mean, there were two amazing linebackers for Sask between him and Larry Dean. And even if you want to roll Moncrief in there too, because he's also a great player, although he's in and out of the box as that Sam linebacker. But I mean, hey, the cracks start to show when you put too much weight on the shoulders of one man. So I will be interested to see if Butler could take advantage because, man, it is fun to watch him get on a roll, and hopefully he'll be able to do that. For me, the matchup that I'm really looking forward to is I want to see this Ticats offensive line. So it's almost an extension of the same thing that you were saying, but they got big Micah Johnson inside at D tackle, and they've got some other decent guys for Sask, but I'm not writing home about these guys. And I feel like an opportunity for this Ticats offensive line to assert itself and to make up ground for probably, the beginning of the season not being the way that they wanted it to be. I heard something earlier today about people complaining about in another league, talking about stat padding and whatnot. And I thought to myself, who complains about stat padding? It is somebody who sits in the stands and doesn't play the game. If I was a coach or a player, which I have been a player, I want to have my best performance every time I touch the ball. I don't care necessarily what the score is. So it's not about going out there to pad stats, but what I'm saying is you know that you didn't put out your best performance all season long, and any opportunity you get to show on film who you really think you are and who you know you are, you want to take advantage of that. So if they're going to go out there and have a heck of a performance running the ball, this is the game. And go out there and do it. And don't apologize for doing it. Run it until they force you to stop. If it works, keep it going. And I think that all starts up front with those 5 guys: Murray, Revenberg, Beard, Woodmansey, and Riley. I think they've got a task in front of them that is one that's appealing. It's a task that they want. And, if they take advantage of it, it could be a long night for that SAS D line. Now, we talk about the run game. I have a feeling that it's going to be somewhere outside of the run game, though. But who is the one person to put a halo on and focus on for this game for you? I feel like we're going to have the same person, but you tell me.
I don't know. I like how you put that. The halo, right? The halo is, I think the focus is going to be when you look at this Saskatchewan team, right? Yeah, they're struggling a little bit. Dolegala's putting up some yards passing the ball, right? Their defense they're doing okay. They got a couple ball hawks, but they got holes. The one person on this Sask team is the one that gets protected by the halo, and that is Mario Alford. He is a returner like we talked about with Javon Leake, right? He is a one returner that he can hit. He can hit a big return. And the nice thing that Mario Alford does that I like a lot is when you watch him return, a lot of these guys are kind of side-to-side returners. So what that means is they'll try to make somebody miss, try to get outside and kind of run outside of everybody and try to set their blocks up there. Mario Alford plays fearless. He will get the ball. He'll pick one angle up 45 degrees or the other angle up 45 degrees, and he will hit it. And he will run as hard as he can. He'll break a bunch of arm tackles doing it, and he'll get up into the teeth of that coverage team that's trying to spread out and make sure that they keep him from running to the sidelines, and he knifes it right up there. So Mario Alford is the one guy, I think, that really sets up this Riders team, whether it's a kick return or a punt return, because even when he doesn't break a big one, he's still getting 15 yards, 20 yards sometimes. It doesn't look great, but next thing you know, they're at half field, right? And they're already almost in field goal range. So Mario Alford is one guy that this Ticats special teams is really going to have to focus on and make sure that they corral. And I mean, like Flowers Lloyd, right? Nick Cross, Bailey Feltmate, Fraser Sopik, all these guys that are going to be playing a huge role need to step up for a game like this and really to help take this Ticats team to be able to try to blow this team out and really get some momentum going forward like we talked about.
Yeah, between Tyreek McAllister, Javon Leake, and this guy Mario Alford, I think those are the best 3 most dangerous, I could break a game open by myself returners in the Canadian Football League. So yeah, he's dangerous. He's dangerous. You got to respect anybody who's fast and powerful enough to run through arm tackles. So that's a good one. I will, however, highlight the one person who I think Ticat fans are all going to be watching very closely, and that is none other than number 19, the man who wears the gloves. It's Bo Levi Mitchell. And his performance in this game, while he technically doesn't really have much at stake here, I think it will be a performance that is closely analyzed and picked apart by all of the fans and all of the commentators, because we haven't had an opportunity to really take him in all season long. He played a little, he was hurt, went on the 6th game, came back, was hurt, went on the 6th game, and now we're finally getting what we've been waiting all year, all off season to see. So people will be anxious to analyze, know that this is a small sample size, but if he comes out hot, oh my goodness, the other teams better be on notice, because a hot Bo Levi Mitchell heading into the playoffs is not what the rest of the CFL wants to see.
And Corey, you know what? It absolutely, Bo Levi is the center of attention for every CFL fan right now in this game, right? But personally, as a player, right, his past few games when he was healthy weren't really the greatest, right? So now he's had to sit with that. The easiest way to get over a bad game is to just go to practice the next day and wash what you did before, right? Go to the next game, wash what you did before. He's now had to sit on having kind of a struggle for this long of being injured, right? And that's not easy. So when you think of like, there's really, the Ticats are already in playoff contention, right? He's just trying to get back into the feel of it. I can almost guarantee you in his mind for the past 6 weeks, he's been sitting there going, I'm not just coming out here to get used to it again and just try to feel it out again. I'm not happy where I was at before this happened. I need to show this league that I am Bo Levi Mitchell, that we're here to win a Grey Cup. And now I need to go out there and actually show it on field, right? And I think that's what's in his mind, and I bet he can just not wait for this opportunity to come.
Man, well, you can catch Tim Terry, Bo, and James Butler in Sask tonight at 7 p.m. at Mosaic Stadium. It is going to be the Saskatchewan Roughriders against the Hamilton Tiger Cats in what is the last of 3 remaining games in the 2023 season for both of these clubs. It's going to be an exciting game. And of course, at 6 p.m. Eastern, that pregame show will kick off with Andy Fantuz and Bubba O'Neill. And then at 7, RJ Broadhead and Luke Tasker will have the call. And if you can't make it out to Mosaic like I can't, then you will be tuned in right here to listen.ticats.ca. We'll have that Ticats version of the broadcast for you. So if you've listened to us this far, we appreciate it. Please make sure you check us out on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button. Share it with a friend. And for Mike Daly, this is Courtney Stephen from TigerCast Game Day presented by Tiffany Gate Fresh Gourmet. Until next game day, we hope you have a great day.
It's game day and you're ready. So are we. Let us know your thoughts. Email us at gameday@ticats.ca. Courtney Stephen and Mike Daly are here every game day with their insights into today's game. Subscribe to the Ticats Audio Network on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.